Hello, I'm Councillor Daniel Cowan, leader of Southend-on-Sea City Council. Today, I want to give you a straightforward update on the Council's finances, because we've just published our year-end financial position and it contains some challenging news. This year, the Council has reported a £12 million overspend. That's the largest financial challenge we faced as an administration, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Now, over the coming days, you'll probably see a lot of commentary about that £12 million figure. And I understand why. It's a big number and it's an easy headline. But headlines rarely tell the whole story. My job today is to explain the whole story. Because if all you hear is the council overspent by £12 million, you'll miss the far more important question. Why? And when you look at the detail, a very different picture emerges. Almost all of the pressure comes from a small number of statutory services, particularly children's social care. In fact, children's and adult social care account for £17.1 million of pressure between them. That's 143% of the council's entire overspend. Put simply, if those services had come in on budget, we'd be discussing a positive financial position today, not an overspend. Now, it's important to understand what we mean by statutory services. These are services that councils are required by law to provide. We don't get to decide whether or not we fund them. When a vulnerable child needs a placement, when an older person needs care, or when someone meets the legal threshold for support, the council has both a legal duty to step in and a moral duty to get it right. That's why these pressures are so significant. Unlike many other parts of the budget, they simply cannot be switched off, scaled back or paused when demand rises or costs increase. What that tells us is that this is not a whole council failure. In fact, it tells us the exact opposite. Most council services have stabilised and in many cases improved. We've invested in roads and pavements, parks and playgrounds, community safety, housing and support for our residents. We've delivered savings, redesigned services, increased budgets where they were needed and undertaken major transformation work. The truth is, we've done everything local government would expect a responsible council to do. We've increased budgets, delivered savings, redesigned services, delivered major transformation and realised more than £4 million of cost avoidance and financial benefits in children's services. We've put more money into children's services for 2 years running. We've reviewed placements, challenged costs, strengthened oversight, and I have personally chaired a series of challenge sessions looking at every option available to us. Yet despite all of that, demand continues to rise. Children are presenting with increasingly complex needs and councils across the country are being forced to compete for a limited number of placements in a market that simply isn't working. Now, I want to be clear. This is not an excuse. We own the problem and we will continue doing everything we can to manage it. But it is important to recognise that local government is dealing with the consequences of a children's social care system that has been allowed to become unsustainable over many years. The previous government failed to properly reform the market or provide sufficient long-term funding. The current government has recognised that changes are needed, and I welcome the action it is taking, but these are deep-rooted problems that cannot be fixed overnight. The good news is that Southend Council remains financially sustainable. We are not facing the sort of position that has forced some councils to seek emergency financial support from government. We have strong financial management, we have reserves, we have a plan, and we will continue to transform the way we work. Most importantly, cuts to frontline services will not be our first port of call. We will continue working with government, with partners, providers, and our own teams to find better ways of delivering services, reducing costs, and protecting the things that matter most to local people. This isn't the news that any of us wanted to be sharing, but residents deserve the full picture, not just the headline. We will continue to take responsibility, continue to push for reforms to the system, continue to protect the services local people rely on, and continue building a city we can be proud of.